Shubha Sandhya. Members of the dais, Honorable Member of Legislative Assembly, for me, more important is the editor of Sambad, and I was really astonished by the interest that he shows in promoting literature in Odia. Other members, we have Director of Sambad here, Monica ji, my friend Gaurari Das, then Kshetravasu Naik, and my colleague, I can say, because we share the same birthday. So very dear to me, Dr. Ganesh Ji. Honorable members of this August gathering, particularly eminent writers, other elders, and especially Nava Pratibhavant writers here. Wish you all a very good evening. Friends, I don't know how many are interested in literature, particularly short fiction writing, but I hope that most of you are writers or readers of short story. And I would like to give away a secret, a mantra, which once was shared with me by none other than another Jnanpith awardee and very senior Malayali writer, L.P. Vasudevan Nair. He told me how to write a good short story. I know every one of you, particularly the Nava Pratibhavant writers, will be interested in knowing how to write a good short story. But let me tell you the answer at the end of my talk. First of all, at the outset, I congratulate the awardees who have won the prestigious, I would say, Nava Pratibha awards. Awards mean a lot for you. I remember as a young writer, which was probably my third or fourth story, which was won an award, and the award carried a sum of rupees 25, but I still cherish that joy, the pleasure of getting the award. Awards should not be judged by the amount that you earn, but the prestige behind it is invaluable. Thanks, this award that has gone in your way, particularly the 10 Pratibhavans, I would say now Pratibhavans, it means it is very significant because it not only recognizes your contribution to short story genre, but also puts some responsibility on your shoulders. You have been writing. I don't have any doubt that you are not just beginners. You have won this award. I was told that hundreds of applications or other stories were sent for this competition, and you are the chosen ones. So I congratulate you and also make you aware of the responsibility that is thrown on your shoulders. The responsibility means now people have expectations from you. I was recently told by the organizer, my friend Gaurari told me that, my friend Mr. Naik told me that out of 10 every year, hardly about 4 or 5 or 6 rise or continue to write. So getting a short story award is not important. It is expected that you continue to write. Satatya is very much important. And once you keep up writing continuously, then I'm sure in the 10 years' time, within a decade, you will be known all over the Odisha. So this is what is important. You have to remember that this is a cognizance taken of your writing, the quality of your writing, by the organization which expects a lot more from you. So wish you all the luck because this is just the beginning for you. So maybe I'll be here a decade later to probably give away some prestigious awards to the same writers, and I'll be very happy to do it. It is said that nations are built in the minds of writers. Nations are built in minds of writers. They either prosper or die in the hands of politicians. This is a saying. So I expect, particularly with people like Soumyaranjan Patnaik ji, I know how dedicatedly he works for promoting not only literature, but in particular short story. So I am very, as he mentioned in his speech, I was told that he was telling why, how short story reaches out to the maximum readers. It is true. So I expect literature to prosper, short story to prosper in the hands of the politicians of Odisha. There are politicians who allow it to die, but it will not happen as long as we have politicians like Soumyaranjan ji. You all know there are four genres of, important genres of literature: poetry, fiction, plays, essays. But I write short stories, fiction. I'm a fiction writer, and basically a short fiction writer. I have written some novels, probably as was mentioned by Gaudari Das ji. Yes, my novel has been translated into several languages, but yet I consider myself a short fiction writer. And I little differ from what Soumyaranjan ji said, that short story has a bigger outreach. It reaches out to the maximum of readers. It is true to this extent. But for me, though I am a short fiction writer, I value poetry the most. You know, the comparisons are odious. You should not compare any form of literature. Yet, I agree with Nirmal Verma, the great Hindi fiction writer. I agree with him. He says, and I quote, "A short story is born out of a desire to write a poem in a narrative style of a novel." So where does story stand? It stands between a poem and a novel. But yet, in my opinion, in my experience, short fiction writing needs a special craftsmanship. And it's very, very difficult. As difficult as a good poem. I know there are many poets in this audience, probably they will be proud. But yet, once again, I reiterate, poetry is most difficult and most beautiful genre, but I'm referring to good poetry. There are people who write poetry because it is easy. Because at one sitting you can write 5 or 10 lines and it becomes a poetry. It is not so. A writing of a poem can take months together, weeks together, or days together. But it is as difficult or as important as short story or short fiction. Friends, writing is a solo activity. Probably young writers, I don't have to tell them, it's a solo activity. Probably most of you like to have a solitude, would like to leave themselves alone when they write a story. Yes, it is a solo activity. But once you finish writing a story, then it becomes a collaborative effort. Because once a story is written, you need to reach out to the people. You like to read people to read it. In that case, then many people come in between. First, typesetting is required, then printing, then publishing, and then reaching out to the people in the form of book or any other form. So, a short story is a solo activity, and I enjoy writing short story more than reaching out to the people, but it is very, very important. So I request all the members of the family of the Nava I would say, to allow them the solitude they require, allow them to remain lonely, sit alone, undisturbed when they write short stories. After once they finish short story, probably they will bore you by reading the story to you. Doesn't matter, but give them the necessary time for writing a short story. Yesterday, as I arrived here, I was given a magazine of Katha, the monthly magazine, Katha, recent one, a great issue, and I found my story appearing in it. The title is Divina Harda. I'm just giving this example. The story was written in late 60s. So just imagine how story travels. And the story that was written in 1970 or before has the same appeal even today. In the January issue, they have come out with 24 different stories by different in different languages recognized by the Academy. So that also has one story of mine, which is Teresa's Man. In English, Teresa's Man, Teresa ka Marad. I don't know what title it has in Odia. Then again, this story was written probably in the same period, early 70s, I think, or maybe even earlier than that. But then you can imagine how story travel long years without losing its importance. So whatever you write today, probably some of the stories which have been awarded here will be remembered by the readers and people, and in translation for long years and for long years to come. But for that, your readership should grow. Once written in Odia language, it should get translated into other languages, and then only you will find a bigger readership. And I am very happy to know that many workshops are conducted in Odisha, particularly by Sambad group and others. Workshops for translators, very much necessary. So once the stories go into translation, then only you can get recognition. You cross the state and the barriers of your language, the barriers of your state, and reach out to a larger readership in the country. But you have to be very careful. We need good translators. Gauravi Das, you should take note of this. We need good translators, very good translators. And we have to be careful, because a bad translation of a good story can ruin a story. But it doesn't mean that a good translation of a bad story will lift the quality of the story. So what is important is a good story and good translation. That will make a Dugdha Sharkara Yoga. So both together will mean that you add sugar to milk, which increases the taste of it. Now, I don't know how much time I have, but I'll finish as fast as possible. A question has to be posed to yourself. Why do I write? Why do you write? Ask yourself, why do I write? And you will find different answers from different people. When I asked myself, I found, yes, millions of writers have written and contributed to literature in the form of billions of books, and most of the topics on the earth are covered. And yet I feel like writing. Why? Because all the writers have covered most of the aspects of life. Yet, why literature thrives today? Then I asked that question to me, and I realized that I write because I have something different to tell. And I have something to tell differently. Because you know, Ramayana, Mahabharata are two great epics which continue to appeal to the writers. Why? Because of the complexity of life that exists or that prevails in that, only in these two epics, they inspire the writers to take new topics related to Mahabharata characters or incidents. So today we find tangent stories, going tangent to Mahabharata stories. Now, for example, Ram and Sita, Ramchandra and Sita, everybody knows what happens to them. But what about the other ladies? What happens to Ahilya? What is her past? So this is very, very important. These are the challenges that young writers should pick up from the epics themselves. Besides, you have umpteen of numbers of you read out your paper, you will come to know how many Katha bij you get in the news items. When a dog bites a man, it is an usual story. But when a man bites a dog, then it becomes a story. It's some bij for a writer to pick up thread from that and write a story. I'm just giving one example, but then there are many, many others. Now, for example, recently we have gone through the epidemic, COVID-19, the lockdowns and whatnot. So many hardships people face, continue to face now as a fallout of that. But when you read the papers, you find actually reading papers was depressing. Thankfully, many papers were not available. But whatever news came across on TV or anywhere, sometimes they were depressing. But there were some silver lining to these clouds. I remember having read one story about, one incident about a physically challenged bidi worker who was not in good health as such, but he was a poor bidi worker he was in his 60s and he had earned some money and saved for his rest of his life. He had in his bank 2,500,000 rupees. When he found the people are in need, this poor bidi worker donated 2 lakhs rupees to the Chief Minister's fund. He was from Kerala. I hats off to that state and that man. These are the characters you should find to write upon. There are other incidents, if I'm permitted, let me share with you. In Goa itself, during the lockdown, most of the migrants had to go back home. Nobody would allow them to stay on. So, but unfortunately, they were forced to go, but nowhere to go because there were no buses, no trains, no vehicles, no means of traveling. So they were stranded. I had a friend who had a group of cyclists. Early morning they would go cycling. One day, and what they found is, during this pandemic, during the lockdowns, all the hotels were closed. And many street dogs who were striving on the leftovers at the hotel, they were going hungry. So these people would go with cycles. When they go cycling, they would carry a plastic bag in which there were bread loaves, bread. And these bread, they would distribute them to the dogs. And dogs would wait for them because this was going on quite for some time. And one day they found somewhere, suddenly some children came, grabbed the bread and ran away. So they were surprised. So they were behind the bushes. They kept the cycles there and went out. And they found there was an opening where some migrants' families were living because they had no train to go, no buses to go, no conveyance, and they were stranded. And so these people went there and asked them, "What are you doing here?" They said, "Poor people." They said, "We don't have anywhere to go." "Then why are you here? Why not in the streets or around?" Say they are driven out by the landlords, and if we go on the street, police beat us up. So they were not allowed to move in the streets. So these people, this cyclist group, they went back and cooked some food, bought some cooked food for them and distributed to these few families. Next day, they cooked special food for them and go there, and they found there were many more who had joined them. And the third day, yet more, because they were all, spread out. So they continued this. First day 2 kilos, then 5 kilos of rice they cooked, then 10 kilos they cooked, 25 kilos they cooked. So this went on. And when the local sarpanch came to know about this thing, what is going on there, one day he came in the morning with the group, joined them, not with any food or anything, just to be photographed. And next day, the photo appeared as if the sarpanch was serving these poor people. These things inspire writers to take up the cause of humanity. Because there are good people and bad people everywhere. So I don't want to take much of your time. Before I conclude, let me tell you about how to improve your skills, how to hone your skills of writing short stories. First thing, do read. I remember one incident when some 50 years back, when Acharya Kaka Sahib Kalekar, the disciple of Mahatma Gandhi, had visited my house. I was fortunate to have him at my house. And somehow I complained to him that because of my occupation, I cannot give enough time to writing. And he advised me, he never bothered about, if you don't have time to write, don't bother about it. Because whatever inside you have, it will come out someday. But if you stop reading, then it is a matter to worry. So best thing, you must keep up reading good books. During my younger days, I didn't have any guidance from seniors, what book to read. Fortunately, I came across good books and I did a good reading. But you have teachers, you have friends, you have people in the Sambad who can guide you about what good books you need to read. And this is very, very important. Your reading habits will increase your power of imagination. It will increase your power of expression. And this is what is required for the upcoming writers. Because I am sure if you keep up reading good books, and do not restrict to Odia language only. When I mean good books written in other languages, they may be available in translation, but if not, every person in India is multilingual. At least 2 or 3 languages everybody knows. You should pick up 1 or 2 languages more, particularly English or Hindi or any other language, and then you will find a wealth of fiction writings available. When I read Gabriel Garcia Marquez, the book that I read about 40 years back, 100 years of solitude, I cannot forget. I have not forgotten a single incident in that book. What a quality writing. So now you should go for such books. Then recently I read Haruki Murakami, who is a Japanese writer, Nobel Prize winner. And you can shortlist your reading books by going for these Nobel Prize winning writers or some Booker writers. Not all Booker writers are good books, but then definitely you will find something different, and something different which will probably inspire you to writing. Friends, with these few words, I'll take your leave, but before that, I once again extend my best wishes, particularly to young writers, and I expect 10 out of 10 writers to keep up this satisfaction. My last wish, more power to your pen.